Hello, and welcome back to the Compassionate Curiosity podcast, where we explore the messy, beautiful, challenging project of being human. And here we invite compassionate curiosity into every conversation, not to judge or fix, but to explore with openness and intention. Together, we dive into body image, food and movement patterns and behaviors, and the stories we tell ourselves about worth, acceptance, and identity. We share tips, tools, and reflections from lived experience to support and inspire your journey forward, guided by curiosity and grounded in compassion. I'm your host, Rachel from Tranquilo Pa Wellness, and I specialize in helping women and teens reduce body insecurity and dissatisfaction, navigate body image struggles, and to go from self-criticism to feeling comfortable, confident, and empowered in their skin. And today we are going to be talking about something so important. We're going to be talking about that inner voice you hear, likely several hours of the day, what can be referred to as self-talk. And this may very well be the sister episode to the episode on self-compassion and self-awareness, because they're very much connected. Well, really, those are all connected to all of them. Frankly. But we're going to be taking a deeper dive into self-talk. We're going to look at what it really is, why it matters, how the inner critic forms, how your thoughts impact your feelings and behaviors, and how you can start to notice and strengthen other more compassionate inner perspectives that already live inside you. So I want to invite you to join me in a moment of grounding ourselves, if that's accessible to you right now. So maybe that looks like you pausing whatever you're doing, if you're able to. Maybe that's having a seat. Maybe that's just standing. If you're able to gently close your eyes, I invite you to do that. Maybe your eyes are open. That's also fine too. And just connect with your breath. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And a long breath out through your nose. And just take a couple more rounds at your own pace, shifting your attention to your breath, noticing it from the moment it appears to the moment it disappears. And maybe you notice some thoughts coming up. We will be talking about those in a minute, just sending some love to those, just letting them be there, watching them pass, and then just come back to your breath. Let's take one more deep breath in through your nose and a long breath out through your nose. And when you're ready, gently opening your eyes and letting the world back in. Thank you. So let's start by diving into what exactly self-talk is, so we can have a better understanding of it. So self-talk is the ongoing internal dialogue you have with yourself. It's the stream of thoughts, commentary, judgments, encouragement, or criticism that flows through your mind every day. And for most of us, it's something that's pretty automatic. It's something that is on autopilot, something that, we're not aware of. We're not aware of as we go about our day. Or if we are aware of it, we think we are it. And more often than not, that self-talk is pretty negative, pretty disempowering. And that disempowering voice can be referred to as the inner critic. And so the inner critic might sound something like, why did you say that? You're not doing enough. You didn't get anything done today. Everyone else has it together except you. You should be thinner by now. You always mess things up. You can't wear that. Those are just some examples. I wonder if you can relate to any of those, or maybe this is inviting you to think about what your common inner critic statements are. And what's important to know is that inner critic often formed as a protective voice. So maybe you were criticized growing up or had to meet impossible standards to feel loved or accepted. Maybe you learned to be hard on yourself because you thought that was the only way to improve. But the thing is that over time, this inner voice doesn't actually help us. And it isn't just harmless talk. It shames, it limits, it disconnects you from your power because those messages don't just stay in your head. And this is why self-talk is so incredibly important to address. It shapes how you feel about yourself, how you act, behave, and move through the world. And that includes how you treat your body and yourself. And essentially, how you speak to yourself directly impacts how you experience life. It creates your reality. So let's look at this a bit deeper. The thoughts or self-talk that we have, when we have a thought, it leads to a neurochemical response in the body, meaning that certain hormones and chemicals are released as a result of that thought. And we experience that neurochemical response in the body as a feeling or an emotion. So for example, the experience of anxiety in the body could be through shakiness, more rapid breathing, a tightness in your chest, or your heart racing. And when we feel a certain way or experience an emotion, it directly influences what we do, what behavior we engage in, what action we take. So for example, sticking with anxiety, let's say it's anxiety related to body image. Would you be more likely to head out the door with ease, feeling good in what you're wearing, or end up staying home because you feel uncomfortable in your body? Probably the latter, right? So we can see that based on an emotional state, it impacted our decision and action. And when all of this is on repeat, when we're thinking the same things, having the same self-talk, that's creating the same emotions, that causes us to engage in the same actions or behaviors, they become fixed. They become fixed as habits. They become hardwired neural pathways that continue to be reinforced and activated. And this literally creates the reality of your life, right? So something that I think can be a really good visual of this is something called the cognitive triangle. And this is a tool that's sometimes used in or as a part of cognitive behavioral therapy to help break negative thought patterns. It's the idea that your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are all connected. Okay. So how can we utilize this? I want to take a moment here to go through kind of two different forms of this to help give you a tool and resource that you can utilize in your own life to build awareness around this. So we're going to use one as an example with an old disempowering pattern, and then a revised renew pattern with a more empowering circumstance. Okay. So here we have, if you're with me on YouTube here, you can see my beautiful triangle that we have our thought in one corner, feeling in the other, and behavior in the other. Okay. So you can start at any corner of the triangle. So you can do this by picking a disempowering thought, feeling, or action that you took. So let's say that I choose I'm feeling guilty. Okay. So I start in my feeling corner here, and guilt is what I'm feeling. So we see that guilt is going to be connected to a thought and a behavior, right? And this helps us look at either, where the guilt stemmed from, the thought, or what it might lead to, the action or behavior. So let's say I bring my awareness to feeling guilty, and now I backtrack. I ask myself, I wonder why I'm feeling this. And this is, again, without judgment. It's coming from a place of curiosity, right? And so then I recall what I was thinking to myself. And let's say what I was thinking to myself was, I shouldn't have eaten that piece of cake. Okay. And then the behavior that followed that scenario was I tried to overcompensate for that by skipping my next meal or exercising to quote unquote make up for it. So we can see that we have our three corners and how they're all connected. We see that, with the helpful visual of a triangle, that regardless of which corner you start at, thought, feeling, or behavior, it's connected to the other two, right? Which is incredibly helpful in building awareness around how you are moving about life, what it looks like for you and how it impacts you. And I also like this because it's a visual of the mind body connection and what we mean by that, right? So you're having a thought that starts in your mind and it leads to a physical experience in your body, how we experience an emotion, right? And that also impacts how your body carries out a certain action or behavior. So I really like it for that sense as well. And so now let's kind of utilize the same structure to reframe that same situation into something that would better serve you, right? So we start by looking at, what is that guilt trying to tell me? Is it based on an old pattern or belief, or is it a solid truth? So let's say by looking into this, I realize that my guilt is based on a belief of mine that cake equals bad, or, cake will make me unhealthy. And so if I eat the cake, I am unhealthy. So going from there, I look at this belief for what it is, a belief. And I remember from all my learning and unlearning around food, nutrition, and wholeness, thanks to my work with my dietitian, that one dessert doesn't define my worth or my health, and that no food is good or bad. It's fuel, it's sustenance for life, which allows me to literally live and express myself. Now, when I say this new thought, what feeling comes up? Well, I notice there's an expansion. There's a lightness in my body. I feel a softening, a kindness. And so as a result of those emotions and feelings, instead of over-exercising or deciding to skip my next meal, I decide to move on with my night and treat myself with kindness and care. Okay. So if we pause and look at what just happened in those two versions of the cognitive triangle, we can see two very different situations, right? We can see and feel the heaviness from the first one. The guilt is loud, the self-criticism is strong, and the behavior led to more disconnection from myself. On the other hand, there's a lightness in the reframed version, right? Not because it's perfect or magically fixes everything, but it carries with it permission, compassion, right? So we can see how powerful this is, right? Because ultimately we are deciding the outcome once we have this awareness, okay? And so I think, what's important to note here is that starting to reframe and rewrite these more empowering patterns isn't going to be a shift that happens overnight, okay? We need to give ourselves grace and patience with this process. I mean, think about how many years you've been living from your current belief systems. Probably several, right? Decades. And these have become hardwired because of the repetition and exposure over time. So it only makes sense that it may take a little time to come to a new default, right? And that's where patience, consistency, and compassion become the cornerstones of truly changing. Okay. We start to realize that while we can't always control the first thought or feeling that shows up because of those hardwired patterns and neural pathways, the powerful part is that you can build the skill to notice it, name it, and choose a different direction. And this work, this practice of catching yourself in the pattern and gently shifting, that's how change happens, gradually, with patience, with support. Every time you interrupt one of your old raggedy beliefs or thought patterns, it's losing its strength and power. And every time you replace it with a new empowering thought or belief, you are literally creating new neural pathways in your brain. That's what neuroplasticity is, which is pretty amazing, right? I think it's also incredibly important to note that when you do start to reframe and rewrite, it's very common for it to feel fake or forced. And that's simply because for most of us who do have the inner critic as the default, those more gentle, kind words are just not as familiar as the more harsh, critical words that are, maybe your dominant self-talk. So those more gentle, kind words come from a different part of you, a part that's wise, compassionate, and wants to support you and not tear you down. And that part of you is within every single one of us. It's what stems from your higher self, even if that doesn't ring true to you right now. Even if you're thinking, what is Rachel talking about? Like, if that compassionate side of me exists, I've definitely never heard it. And I get that. Like, I was there. My inner critic was running the damn show. And if you would have told me that there's some other part of me in there that loves, cares, and supports me, I would have thought you were insane. So know that I see that doubt. Let's honor that doubt. It's real, it's valid, and it's stemming from that critical voice, which is a very real experience for you, for me, right? But now I invite you to challenge that doubt just by simply coming at this with curiosity. What if, just for a moment, you could experiment with the idea that there is more to you than that inner critic? What if there is a quieter part, maybe hard to hear at first, but that's actually grounded in kindness, understanding, truth? You don't have to fully believe it right now, but can you wonder about it? Can you be open to the idea that there's something wiser and more loving within you, just waiting for space to speak? And I think one of the most important things to remember here with all of this, is that regardless of what your thoughts are, you are not those thoughts. You're not the emotions that go with those thoughts. You're not the behaviors that are associated with those either. And this is incredibly important to distinguish because it is so easy to forget that. It's so easy to feel as if we really are that thought or that feeling. It consumes us, which is what to be totally lost in thought means, right? It's you're identified with it. There's no separation. And without separation, those things have power over you. But in reality, these are all just things that we experience as humans that are shaped by conditioning, culture, our upbringing, messages that have been internalized over time. They're responses to a world that often told you who you needed to be in order to belong or survive or to be loved. And I want to say here, by saying that you're not your thoughts, emotions, or behaviors doesn't mean you can bypass responsibility for them. It doesn't mean you're off the hook or, that anything goes. In fact, as you continue building your awareness around your thought patterns, your emotions and actions, you're no longer at the mercy of any of them. You no longer see them as happening to you. Instead, they're happening for you. You slide over into the driver's seat, where you are now in a powerful position to choose how you respond, right? You become responsible for that choice. And the goal isn't perfection with this, right? It's progress. It's learning to meet yourself differently over time. And the more you do, the more you realize that you're not powerless in these moments. You do have a say in what happens next. So no, you're not your inner critic, nor anything that stems from that, but you can learn to respond to it in ways that are kinder, more grounded, more aligned with who you truly are. And who is that? Who is that true self? Who are you when all the labels, identities, and narratives are stripped away? What's left? Who is there beneath all of that self-talk, all of the protective reactions, all of the old stories? Your true self is the underlying current that holds all of the things that you are as a human. That true self is the space between your thoughts. It's the pause between your breaths. It's that which witnesses these thoughts instead of being swept away by them. And it's the presence from which compassion and kindness are born. And when you begin to connect with that part of yourself, that true self, is when everything begins to shift. Because now you're no longer reacting out of habit, you're responding from clarity, from truth, from love. And so Now I want to go over with you 3 tools that you can start to utilize to build awareness around your self-talk and to start navigating it. Okay. So the first one is called the inner critic alarm. This is something I love. I invite you to try this out. So set an alarm in your phone. This can be once a day, twice a day, whatever resonates with you, and label it as inner critic alarm. And when it goes off, utilize it as an invitation to stop, take a deep breath, and reflect. What am I saying to myself right now in this moment? How is this making me feel? And would I say this to someone I love? And if you feel inclined, writing this down can be super helpful because it can help reveal patterns that show up time and again, like common self-talk statements, common themes, which can be a starting point for exploring where they may have come from and whether or not they're true for you anymore. And this practice helps build awareness without judgment. Even just naming the tone of your inner dialogue in that moment, whether that's, I'm noticing it's critical, it's harsh, it's anxious, it's fearful, that creates more space between you and it. And that space is where choice begins. The second tool is something called try on a new lens. So instead of forcing a positive spin, this tool is more so about gently trying on a different perspective. Just trying it on, like trying on a new pair of glasses and seeing what else might be true. So when a harsh or critical thought shows up, pause, put on your new compassionate glasses, literally. Choose a pair of sunglasses or glasses that can be designated as your compassionate glasses, put them on and ask yourself, what else could I see to be true right now? How would I speak to a younger version of me who felt this way? So an example of this might be, my critical thought that I noticed showed up was, I look disgusting today. And when I put on my compassionate glasses, my new perspective is, okay, I'm struggling with how I feel in my body today, but that doesn't make me disgusting. My body isn't the problem. My self-talk actually is, right? And so it's not about sugarcoating reality. It's about remembering that your inner critic is just one lens through which to look at life. It's not the truth, right? There are gentler, more supportive ways to see yourself in situations. And this is one way to help you explore that. The last tool here is something called the embodied self-compassion pause. And actually, I want to invite you to join me in doing this right now if you are able to. If not, no worries. I would invite you, when you do have the space and time, to come back to this and try it out at a different time. So this is a simple practice that you can return to anytime your inner critic feels especially loud, or when you just need a moment to reconnect. So if you're currently in a safe and comfortable space, I invite you to close your eyes or just soften your gaze and take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and a long breath out through your nose. And now I want to invite you to place one hand on your heart and maybe your other one on your belly or resting in your lap. And if neither of that, feels comfortable, just feel the ground beneath you, whether you're sitting or standing. And just notice how your hand feels over your heart or how the ground feels beneath you. Notice the rise and fall of your breath. Now imagine there's a quiet, steady part of you, a part that sees your effort, that knows you're doing the best you can, that holds you with softness, not judgment. There's no need to force anything. Just breathe and see if you can feel that presence, even if it's just for a moment. And now I'd invite you to silently repeat to yourself a phrase that feels soothing. This could be, I'm here for you. I'm okay. This is hard, but I'm not alone. I can meet myself with kindness in this moment. And just let that land for a moment. And let's take another deep breath in through your nose and a long breath out through your nose. And when you're ready, gently coming back. Thank you. So, a few things as we wrap up here for today. A reminder, my dear, that you are not broken if your inner critic is the loudest voice right now. You're not weak or damaged goods because you struggle with self-talk. This is so incredibly common, which is why it's one of the key pillars in my coaching programs. So you are definitely not alone in this. When you begin to identify your self-talk from a place of curiosity and inquiry, that's when you begin to reclaim your voice. You're no longer controlled by your thoughts or emotions. You decide. You get to rewrite the script. Not to silence or deny that inner critic, but to recognize it, thank it for its outdated role, and make room for the wiser, softer, more empowered parts of you. And a few journal reflections this week that I would invite you to just take a couple minutes to write out and reflect on. Who's usually the loudest in your inner room? Who hasn't been invited to speak in a while and deserves more airtime? When is that inner critic loudest for you? And what's one thing you can do today to make space for that part of you that reminds you of your worth, your wisdom, and your wholeness? And if today's episode resonated with you and, someone popped into your head who you thought could really use this right now, I'd love for you to share it with that person. And if you feel inspired to do so, leave a review as well. This helps more folks find this space, which means that this kind of honest, compassionate conversation can reach more hearts that need it. And until next time, may you know that you are not alone. I am here with you. May you be guided by curiosity and grounded in compassion, sending you love, light, and gratitude today and always.